Great stuff. So welcome to weeks 3 and 4. In this module, you're going to be learning all about stress, how it affects your body, why some stress can be good for you, and why we need to avoid prolonged periods of heavy stress. So before we get into too much detail about dealing with stress, first I want to go through what is stress and how it can affect your body. And then we're going to go through what types of stress are there. So there's stress that is good for the body and then stress that is not so good for the body. And then I'm going to show you a way of working out which side of that balance does your stress in particular land on. So let's get into it. So first of all, what is stress? So stress is a response that the body has to something that is happening. So if you imagine back in caveman days, so we used to have stresses that involved attacks from animals or other enemies that we had. So our body's way of dealing with that stress was to produce some hormones, and we'll go into those types of hormones in a little bit. But what those hormones did and what that stress response did for the body is enabled our body to get ready to either fight that danger or flight, so run away from that danger. And over centuries, our bodies haven't changed too much. We still deal with stress in that same way. So you may have heard of flight or fight response, and that's exactly what I'm talking about today. So the body's way of dealing with stress is to take that danger and deal with it in one of two ways. So to try and escape and get that adrenaline pumping, that heart rate up, that blood pressure up, to run away, get the blood sugars up so that you can run as fast as you can away from that danger. Or conversely, to fight. So again, we still get that big blood pressure and heart rate increase, and we get that adrenaline pumping so that we can fight that danger and then deal with that attack. So what happens at the end of that stress? So after the fight is finished or after we've run away and climbed up a tree, what then happens is our body relaxes. So the danger is gone. We've dealt with that danger and we no longer have that stress response on the body. So the adrenaline reduces, our heart rate comes down, our blood pressure returns towards normal. And that feeling of relief overcomes us. So what happens these days? So we're no longer being chased by lions and tigers. We're no longer having to fight for our food against other tribes or things like that. But our body reacts in the same way to the ongoing stresses in our society. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we have that ongoing stress. And it doesn't matter whether it is something serious, so a big problem that's happening right now, or it could also be something small, like someone cuts you off in traffic. Our body reacts in the same way if we feel that that is a stressful situation. So you could be driving along in traffic, someone cuts you off, and you have that same response. So imagine that road rage, that red face, that anger, that is a fight response. And so you're getting that adrenaline release, you're getting that heart racing, you're getting that blood pressure up. And then usually what happens is if you do get road rage, for example, you would yell at the person or you'd keep driving, and then eventually that stress response comes down and you'd be able to continue with that drive for the day. So that's what happens every day to us. So little stresses, things that happen. So the running out of milk in the supermarket, that's a little bit of stress because you're reliant on that for your cup of tea every morning. To major stresses, so being involved in an accident or having some bad news, or just being diagnosed with a heart condition and having to deal with that every day. So all of that stress adds up. So what I want you to think about is all the stresses in your life, and what I want you to do at the moment is download piece of paper below, and what I want you to do is follow the instructions and just write down all the things in your life at the moment that stress you out. It can be tiny things, it can be big things, it can be things that you don't even realize. So I'll give you some examples in that sheet below, but download that, fill it in, and then come back and watch the rest of the video. Welcome back. Thank you so much for writing down all those stresses in your life. I know sometimes thinking about them can be stressful in itself, right? So it might be little things like we were saying, could be as simple as your next door neighbor always mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. It can be super stressful for you because it's woken you up, you get annoyed, you've disrupted your sleep. All of those things can lead to an internal stress response. So what I want you to do now, what I'm going to do is get you to break those things down again. So in the second sheet on that page, what there is a diagram which has a list of good stresses and bad stresses. And what I want you to do is go back to your first list that you've just written. And what I want you to do is try and fill in things that are good stress and things that are bad stress. So what I mean by that is bad stress is things that are causing you a lot of distress. They're ongoing. They might be things like a dispute with someone, an argument. They're causing you anxiety. They're causing you ongoing worry. And what I want you to do is have a think about which side of the list do your particular stresses fall under. So for instance, some of them might actually fall into both. So let's take caring for someone, for instance. So that's a really good stress because you love the person, you're looking after them, you're giving them a lot of your time and your energy, which is fantastic. And in return, you know, they might have looked after you before. You may have been their partner for, you know, several years. So you're happy to do that. And it's a stress that you're happy to take on. But it also falls under the bad side because it is ongoing and it causes quite a lot of concern. So you're worried about the person, you might not be getting enough sleep because you're up looking after them. So I want you to have a think, which side does that fall under? And it's okay to fall under both. Okay, so for example, let's take one of my clients, for example, Mary. So she's doing absolutely brilliantly on the 12-week program. And she sat down with me and we're talking about stress, and I'm talking about what sort of stresses are in her life. So she gets a little bit of road rage. Now, the road rage thing can often be productive. You know, if someone cuts you off, they need to possibly know about it. But if it's happening every time you leave the house, every time anyone does anything remotely upsetting in your, you know, when you're driving, then that's probably not a good thing. So for Mary, she leaves the house, you know, in her car probably twice a day. She goes to work and then she drives on to visit someone and then she comes back. And every time she gets in that car, we've worked out actually she has an incident which might not be your classic road rage, but she's getting anxious about it or she's getting annoyed about something that's happened every time she's driving. And that is definitely falling under the bad side, okay? So I'm going to put road rage there. For you, if it only happens once a year, it might, you know, you might not even put it down as a stress. So another one that Mary is suffering with is lack of sleep. And for her, that is caused by a few things. So her eating habits, so she's eating quite late at night. She's not doing too much activity during the day, so she's kind of mentally tired but not physically tired, and also she doesn't have a great environment to sleep in, so the room is a little bit hot because her partner prefers the heating on, and also she wakes up super early because one of her neighbors does cause a bit of noise. So I'm going to put lack of sleep for her in this side. So for you, if it's only once a week or once every 2 weeks, then that might not be so bad. Okay, then so go through each of yours and make a list again. So from your first list, rewrite it into 2 columns, good and bad. If they fall into both sides, then that is okay. Some good responses is children. So obviously children cause us stress. It's usually a good thing, right? So we worry about their exams and things like that. Things like your health condition. So that probably falls under both. So if you're a bit stressed about what's going to happen, about whether you're going to be able to do certain things again, what your prognosis is, what sort of medications you're going to have to take, that can cause a lot of stress. Doesn't always have to be a bad thing though. It's good to worry about your health because that makes us proactive, right? So go through your list, rewrite it into those 2 columns, and then I will see you in the next video.